This is a driveway. It's been this color for about 15 years. The man who owns it thinks it's gray. It isn't. It's covered in a layer of dirt, so slow and so even that nobody ever noticed it arriving. And this is the same driveway 20 minutes later. That's not new concrete, that's the same concrete. Somebody just took the dirt off it. The man doing it is called Steve. 2 years ago, he was washing dishes in the back of a restaurant for $11 an hour. Today he clears about $7,000 a month, and it started with a machine that cost him $200. Let's go back. Steve worked the sink at a mid-sized restaurant 6 nights a week. From 4 in the afternoon until the last plate came back, usually somewhere near midnight. It's honest work, and he'd tell you that himself, but it had a ceiling and he'd hit it in the first week. Nobody gets promoted out of the sink. There's nowhere for the sink to go. His back had started hurting, in a way that didn't stop when he sat down. He was 29, and he had begun doing the maths people do when they're frightened. How many more years of this at this rate to get anywhere at all? The answer was not anywhere. The number never moved, that's the part that gets you. Not the work, the stillness of the number. One afternoon his boss asked him to hose down the backyard. It was a foul job. Years of grease and bin juice had soaked into the concrete, until the whole yard was the color of a wet road. There was an old pressure washer in the store cupboard. Steve pointed it at the ground, pulled the trigger, and a clean stripe appeared. Not clean or clean, a completely different color in about 4 seconds. He said it was the most satisfying thing he had ever done in that building. He kept going. He did the whole yard. It took him 2 hours and he didn't notice the 2 hours pass. He took a photo before and a photo after, and he showed them to his boss. And his boss looked at them for a moment and said something that Steve has thought about every day since. He said, "I would have paid someone good money for that." Steve bought his own machine that weekend. $200 secondhand from a man who'd used it twice. He'd never owned a tool that cost that much, and it made him feel slightly sick. Then he walked his own street and looked at it properly for the first time. 11 driveways, every one of them filthy, every single owner completely unaware. Because the dirt had arrived so slowly that it had become the color of the thing. He knocked on doors. He didn't have a pitch. He just showed the before and after photos of the restaurant yard and asked if they wanted theirs done. 9 of them said no, 2 said yes, and that's a better hit rate than it sounds, because nobody has ever seen their own driveway clean, and once they do, they cannot unsee the dirty one. He charged $80 for the first one. It took him 3 hours because he had no idea what he was doing. $80 was 7 hours at the sink. The neighbor who'd watched him do it asked him to do hers, then her sister's within a month. Without advertising, without a website, without a single business card. Steve had 11 jobs. Then a woman asked him to do her deck. Wood, not concrete. A big one wrapping round the back of an expensive house. She offered $400, and Steve, who had cleaned exactly 11 driveways, said yes without hesitating. He set the machine the way he always did. Full pressure tip close to the surface, because that's what took the dirt off concrete fastest, and it had never once let him down. Wood is not concrete. He didn't clean that deck. He shredded it full pressure at close range, tore the soft grain straight out of the boards, and left them furred and gouged, like the surface of a scratched-off ticket. He stood there for a long time, not panicking, just looking at it. Because there is no version of that damage you can hide, and there's no version of it you can fix with the tool that caused it. It cost $18 to have the deck sanded and refinished by someone who knew what they were doing. That was every dollar he had made, plus a month at the sink he hadn't worked yet. He paid it. He didn't argue, and he didn't disappear. And later he said that was the only decision from that whole month he was still proud of. Here's what most people would take from that story. they'd take don't do decks. And they'd be wrong because that's the small lesson. The big lesson was that Steve had a machine and no method. He had one setting and he pointed it at everything. He wasn't cleaning surfaces. He was firing a jet of water at them and hoping. So he learned the actual trade. Pressure is not the thing that cleans. The chemical is pressure. It's just how you rinse it off. And every surface has a limit above which you are not cleaning. You're eroding. Concrete can take a hard-closed jet. Wood roof tiles, render, and paint cannot. Those get soft washing a cleaning solution. Time to work in a low-pressure rinse. The dirt lets go on its own. You just have to stop trying to blast it. And that opened the whole rest of the house to him. Not just driveways, roofs, walls, patios, fences, gutters. Every surface he'd been afraid of after the deck was suddenly a surface he could charge for. But the thing that actually changed his income wasn't technical at all. He noticed that a driveway he'd cleaned in the spring was dirty again. By the following spring, not as bad, but visibly, undeniably dirty. So he stopped selling a job. He started selling a schedule twice a year, automatically a fixed price. No phone call needed, and the first 8 people he offered it to, 6 said yes immediately, because nobody wants to think about their driveway. They just don't want to look at a dirty one. That's the whole business, and it's worth being precise about the numbers, because they're not dramatic, and that's the point. A driveway is $180 and takes him about 90 minutes. A full house wash walls. Patio driveway runs to $450 and eats most of a day. He does 2, sometimes 3 jobs a day, 5 days a week. That comes to somewhere around $8,200 of work a month. Fuel chemicals, replacement tips, insurance, and wear on the machine take about 12 of it, which leaves him roughly $7,000. And about half of that revenue is now the twice-a-year contracts. Money he does not have to go and find again every single month. That's the difference between having a job you own and having an income that arrives. Last year he trained 1 other person, because 2 vans can be in 2 places, and because he had finally understood that the hours in his own arms were the only thing he could genuinely run out of. He started taking commercial work, now forecourts, car parks, the backs of restaurants, which is, if you think about it, exactly where the whole thing began. He still walks past the restaurant sometimes. He doesn't have anything bad to say about it. It fed him for 4 years, and it's where he found the machine. What he says about the whole thing is stranger than you'd expect. He says the money isn't really the change. The change is that he can look at a dirty surface and know precisely what it would take to fix it. And here's the part worth taking with you. Steve didn't find a gap in the market. The gap was in plain sight on every street. On every house for years it was dirt. He just noticed it before it was pointed out to him. And then, crucially, after he wrecked that deck, he stopped being someone who owned a machine and became someone who knew a trade. Those are not the same thing, and the second one is what pays. There is dirt on your street too. Right now somebody is going to be the person who notices it. It costs $200 to find out if that person is you.